I have played wrestling games from the PS1 all the way up to the PS4. I mean, I've played them on the PC, but it's the same thing. I've played wrestling games on the GameCube, on the fucking on the Nintendo 64, the
Oh, what have
PS2,
I done?
all of them. Like every console you can play a wrestling. I've even played the old arcade wrestling games that only came out on arcade machines like WrestleFest. I've played all of them, and all of them have been better than WWE2K20. Not all of them. That's an overstatement. 90% of them have been better than 2K20. It's ridiculous how bad that game is. It's just, and I can't even properly describe why it's so shit, because most of the other wrestling games I play aren't, like, with some level of consistency, aren't particularly overly amazing either. Like, there's only like 3 amazing wrestling games ever, in my opinion, and that's Here Comes the Pain, No Mercy, and throwing one out of left field, WWE All Stars. WWE All Stars is great, probably my favourite game ever in terms of wrestling, but they only made one, and it's like got 5 people in the game, and it sucks because of that. But anyway, and the it's sluggish. It doesn't. I can't. You can't do it justice by just looking at glitch videos, because wrestling games have always been kind of glitchy. That's like their charm, almost. A little bit like how Bethesda's games are always glitchy, and that used to be part of its charm until it got too much.
Yeah.
Wrestling games are kind of the same. They were always a little bit wonk and a little bit glitchy. But it's part of its charm. You just sort of accepted it and just laughed at it and carried on, because it never hugely negatively impacted the game. It's not like there was a quest to break or something. It's just a wrestling match. You can just click restart and whatever. It doesn't matter. But this game has actual match breaking bugs and match ending bugs, some of which have been fixed by now, but not all. And this is 2 months into the game being out. It's sluggish. It's just slow and sluggish. I can't convey to you with just gameplay footage, because it's about the feel of the game that's so
Mhm.
awful about it. I can give you 5 wrestling games, all of which play completely differently and are completely different styles, and you would say that they all play well. You may not like them because I know you're not into wrestling, but you can at least say that the kinesthetic of it is good. That
Yeah.
you press button and action happens. You do A and A happens. Like, it's all of them do it. Even some of the bad ones that I didn't like still manage that. This game doesn't. I'm playing as Rey Mysterio, and do you know who that is?
Vaguely.
He's a light heavyweight, cruiserweight, speedy boy. Like,
Mhm.
his gimmick is that he can bounce off the ropes in 40 million different ways at supersonic speed, and you don't even see it coming. So I'm playing as Rey Mysterio, supersonic speedy boy, and it feels like I'm playing as Andre the Giant or Big Show. Like, it's that sluggish. So imagine then if you're playing as someone like Andre the Giant or Big Show, who are huge lug monsters of beef, who move extremely slowly because they're huge lug monsters of beef. If I'm playing a wrestling game with a supersonic speedy mode guy, and I feel like I'm playing as, a tank, you've done something wrong. They changed the control scheme unnecessarily, which isn't the worst thing in the world. Honestly, the control scheme isn't that bad. Everyone shits on it, but it's not that bad. But they got rid. They got They got rid of in the character select menu of basically every wrestling game I've played. In the character select menu, except for the really old ones, you can press a button, and it's like the random button, and you can randomly select like, you press it and it goes to any random wrestler on the list, on the roster list. every game I've played except for ones, you know, in the NES era of gaming, or in the SNES era of gaming, have had that. Every single one. Not 2K20 though, which is even more baffling because 2K19 had it. Like, the year before, I could press square and I get a random wrestler. The year after, I press square and fuck all happens in the menu. There is no random button. I can't randomly select a character, which is useful because if you're just doing exhibition matches and you want to change it up, it's just an interesting way of doing it. Wait, maybe I have to fight Andre the Giant as fucking Becky Lynch or something interesting, you know? Nah, no chance of that now. You have to predeterminedly pick everyone. So all interest has been removed because now I know exactly who I'm fighting. I've got a game plan going in because I've already picked someone. Oh, it's gay. It's super gay. It's the stupidest thing to have possibly removed in a video game ever. Honestly, that's the stupidest. It's the dumbest thing they've done in this game, and it seems so little, but it's just so ridiculous that you would remove that. Of all the things they could remove that are stupid, like the head crank move, it's boring and slow, and fucking no one does in real life because it's so boring and slow that the crowd would boo them out of the building for doing it. That's still in the game though, and that's still on 50% of the fucking roster, that it's their default move when they're at the top of your fucking head. That's their default move for 50% of the roster. I just don't. It's so bad.
The game's been paused a while, hasn't it?
It's bad, yes. It's bad. It's so bad, dude. Like, bottom 3 wrestling games ever. And I'm saying that simply because I don't know if I've played a worse one. I'm not 100% confident that I've played a worse one. It might even be the worst one. But I'm trying to think of other wrestling games I've played that I didn't enjoy. But the problem is I played them for such a short amount of time that I can't remember if I hated them worse than this one or what. Like SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 and 9. I really hated SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 and 9 because they were boring, they were slow, they were plodding, and it was a weird, awkward phase of WWE where nothing was like hitting. Like they were trying to hit things like swing and a miss, you know that phrase. That was happening all the time in that era of WWE. And the games reflected that fucking hard because those games were swing and miss. But I don't think they were bad games. They were just not particularly entertaining. So I don't know if I would rank them worse as 2K20 because at least if I went back and played that now, it would feel like a wrestling game even if it wasn't the most entertaining wrestling game in the world. 2K20 doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel like a wrestling game. It feels like I'm driving a fucking horse. It's like every wrestler is on top of a horse playing Marco Polo in 20 feet of water. It's so sluggish and gay and drudgery. Absolute drudgery. Oh, I'm really trying to think of a worse wrestling game and I can't. I'm sure I've played a worse one. I must have.
What about weird Japanese one?
No, because like Tuken Retsuden or whatever it's called is
it a pure title? Is it like a purist?
No, the problem with Tuken Retsuden, whatever it was called, I can't remember exactly what it's called now, but Tuken Retsuden something. The problem with that game isn't that it's very specific, it's primitive. It's the start of the No Mercy and what would become known as the No Mercy engine, colloquially. I can't remember the Aki engine. That's it. That's the official term. It's just a very primitive form of the Aki engine. So the game is good, but it's got nothing on its predecessors. Is that the word? It's got nothing on its predecessors because it's just the first iteration of the Aki engine. It's still fine. It still plays fine. It's just not refined. That's all. Compared to No Mercy, like 2 years later. I'm trying to think. Like Fire Pro Wrestling again. I'm not a huge fan of Fire Pro Wrestling, but they play correctly. They feel like wrestling games. Um, there's another Japanese one that I can't remember the name of, but that's an awesome game. So I can't even. Oh, what's that PS1? Crush Hour was terrible, but that wasn't a wrestling game. I mean, it was a wrestling game, as in it had WWE wrestlers in it, but it was a racing game. It was really weird, awful. Um, Raw. Raw 1 and Raw 2. I hated those games. But I can't actually remember. That's the issue. Because I hated them, I played them for like 2 hours or 3 hours and then was like, nah, this is shit. And then I went back to playing like WrestleMania 2000 or whatever, or whatever the fucking GameCube one was at the time. Day of Reckoning, maybe. Raw 1 and 2 were bad. I think Raw 1 was worse. Raw 2 was kind of okay. But again, I don't remember if it just played badly or if I just didn't like it. I'd have to play it again, and I can't be bothered because that involves finding a copy somewhere. No, I'm going to say it. 2K20 is the worst one. Definitively.
I never thought I'd see the day.
It's the first game in 20 years of playing these games on release. Legitimately 20 years of playing them on release. Like buying the game on release. It's the first one I didn't buy on release. Because I saw and heard the glitches and the reviews going in. Like, this is a miss year. Which happens sometimes, I'm fine with that. 2K15 was a miss year, but 2K15 still played like a real wrestling game. Even if it was bare bones as all heck, it still played correctly. It still felt okay. 2K20 though was, oh my god, even at £30, that's 50% off, £30, trash. I buy that for £10 and still feel slightly ripped off. But I would buy it for £10. I'd still feel a bit ill doing it, but I do it just to have it. But the, bad, awful. I never thought it would happen either, because I've forgiven some pretty I've forgiven some pretty mediocre games in the lifetime of the SmackDown vs Raw series, which is what this is, but evolved. I survived 2K. I survived 2008 and 9. I survived 2K15, which is a really weird transition period, where it's just really bare bones and stripped back and extremely mediocre, but still a functioning wrestling game, even if it was just really bare bones. Like, I've survived those periods. I've survived the weird fucking early games on the PS1 that don't quite feel good compared to Just Bring It and all that. I just can't with it. It's awful. It's so bad. I'm gonna get back to the game now.